one of the things that comes up for me is walkability and bikeability, and the guidelines for mixed use in the CI1. One of them is to create opportunities for nearby residents to access the project either on foot, bicycle, or other forms of alternative transportation. And sidewalks, paths, and bike lanes, which are protected from traffic, are encouraged. Is the current ped paths and bike paths just going to be associated with the roads, or is there going to be other sort of separated ped paths and bike paths? And then also, how, granted the fact that you don't know who the non-residential use is going to be, but what are your thoughts about being able to connect the residential use to the non-residential use, I guess, would be my question.
Yeah, those are all great points. And that is one of our visions, is without knowing who the non-residential user is, whether it's employment or some type of retail or office, we do want that interconnectivity. So there are certainly, I'll say, bike or sidewalks in the roadways, but there is also contemplated, it's a relatively small project, and we are bifurcated by a large riparian area. So there's limited area outside of I'll say the residential development that some of these paths can occur, but that is our intent. And then also linking it with the future non-residential for the kind of the essence of a true mixed use with the connectivity.
Mr. Holden, does that address your question?
Mostly, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clement, your turn.
Okay, what I'd like, if possible, to go to the presentation, because I'm going to be calling upon certain pages. And I know, Lexi, you didn't show the full presentation that we had as a committee to review, but if possible, can we go to the pages that were given to us in the application?
Yeah, what page are you wanting to go to?
Okay, page 13.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah, and it's a minor thing, but it misled me. It's a minor thing. The fact that you are, let's see, I'm getting to it too, my dear. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that riparian habitat D. This is minor, you guys, but it misled me greatly because I thought riparian. I think that you should change this title to read Zero Riparian. That's a whole different ball game in terms of development than riparian zones, right? It's misleading. The word riparian suggests much thicker vegetation than the word zero riparian. Just me being picky.
Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now let's go to page 52, the cross section of the trail. You've heard me complain about this before. Why do we have that? Let's go to page 52. Why are you showing the standard cross section of the 3-foot dead man space from road curb to sidewalk? Why can't we push the sidewalk? I'm still getting there to the page all the way back to the interior border, creating a greater buffer zone between sidewalk, trail, whatever it is, and road. Granted, you would have to curve the path back to the ADA curb cut at corners, but are we there? Yes, thank you. Yeah, why this dead man space?
So what let me just make sure I understand what your request here is, more or less, rather than having the landscaping be split on either side of the sidewalk, we push the sidewalk further, away from the street, if you will, and create a larger landscape buffer between the sidewalk itself and the curb.
Yes.
Okay.
So what, one thing, I don't know if it totally addresses your comment, is what we're envisioning, and actually what we're under design with on the southern parcel is a meandering path. You mentioned meandering. And so we think instead of just a straight linear path, meandering adds some aesthetics to it. And then it gives us the ability to get it off the road in a lot of cases. And so that is part of our intent, and actually what we're putting into practice or action on the southern parcel.
On the southern, can't you
Sorry.
do it on the northern parcel?
Yeah, so that would be our intent here, is to continue
Okay.
within the constraints that are given, to have a similar meandering path as well.
Okay.
And maximize
good.
that separation as, you know, to the greatest extent, because we understand the concern there, Carol, that we don't, you know, we want to create as great of a pedestrian scaled experience for folks utilizing these spaces, as well as maximize the ability to harvest water off of the roadway, you name it.
Correct.
So we fully well understand that. I think that the image here is conceptual in nature, just to give you an effect here that we are intending to provide landscaping and to create that experience for people. So it is noted here that our intent is also to create a space where people will be able to enjoy and not be right up adjacent to this the roadway. Right. So in some instances, we know it may be closer than we would like, but you know, and there may be that dead man. But the intent here is to create a space that is attractive, so people use it and walk down the roadways, etc. Okay. You know, and all the other benefits that come along with that.
I'm glad to hear that. May I suggest for future typical cross sections, you show that, so people, yeah, that would help a lot. Okay. I think in review process. My next comment, lovely that you have public art integrated into here. May I ask what the funding source will be?
So that's going to be private funding by ourselves.
Nice. Very nice. Congratulations on that one. I like that a lot. Okay. And also page 59. Let's go to page 59. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I have never seen this before, but I'm liking it a lot. Home builders should provide the option to home buyers at the time of construction to install rainwater harvesting micro basins. That's awesome. Have you guys done this before?
I mean, I think we personally have done this on other instances of creating small depressions with, you know, in conjunction with the home builder at the time, you know, and it's an offering that they may be able to put in through it. But I think through the landscaping that, you know, and having to capture water on site and meet the intent of drainage codes, that's a way in which we can do it very effectively.
Yes, thank you. Is this also being offered, implemented in the southern section?
I believe so. The same language.
And I missed it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I missed it then. Great. Okay, next one, page 60. This has 25% of lot size for turf. Oh my goodness, that's huge. I would prefer to read 25% of remaining open space on lot size for turf. You understand the difference? What I'm saying?
I understand, yeah, the math behind it.
Yeah, 25% of the entire lot size could be a big turf area, but 25% of the remaining open space per lot, I think, is more in keeping with appropriate turf areas.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to take notes here as we're gearing up to a later possible. What page are we on?
I think it was page 60. Let's try page 60.
And I believe it's right here, though it's highlighted on the screen.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lexi. Okay, maximum of allowable private natural turf. Oh, I can't see it because shall be limited to 25% of the overall lot size. I would prefer that to be 25% of the available open space after building construction or something like that.
So this is the
That could be a-
question for the applicant, correct? Like our,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Do you-
this is there.
So one of the, just as if you go through the math, given these are smaller lots, if they're only 40 feet wide and they may be 100 to 110 feet deep. So essentially the lot is around 4,000 square feet. And so if the way it's drafted would allow 1,000 square feet of turf. And so, whereas if the building or the home was taken out of that, the home may be 2,000 square feet. So it really limits the amount of turf.
Right.
And I know for my children and I, we enjoy the turf in our backyard. If this was an acre lot or 2 acre lot and it was still held to the 25%, it would be a completely different story. But I think one of the things with the lots being so small, there's not the ability to actually have that much turf.
Well, that leads me to a comment I'd like to make. I live in Savannah where the lots are very small, 0 lot lines, and very few people have big enough yards for turf. But what that does, it forces people out to the common areas, more socialization, more intermingling, and it's a more interactive. Savannah's a great community to live in. We're very interactive. We know our neighbors. So by having small lot sizes and not allowing these big backyards, it forces people out into the common areas, and it works really well.
I'm a big fan of Savannah. I like a lot of the product and kind of the execution of that. I think since we aren't going to have that type of, or that small of lot, or the 0 lot line, what we're hoping to is that this could satisfy or give a family the opportunity to have it in their backyard. But then also we want the nice common areas and the connectivity trails, the public art, so that they are encouraged to utilize the common areas as well.
Well, I think you're mixing metaphors here. You're trying to do 2 things. You're trying to create relatively low income housing, yet providing amenities for high-end housing.
Amenities
by a larger turf area. It doesn't work together. Those 2 conflict.
Yeah, so the turf is not required to put in place. So that will be the homeowner's election, whether they can put in the turf or not.
Okay, well, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to fit with your overall vision.
And Ms. Clement, we could discuss further when we are putting together some type of motion.
Okay, all right. So my last comment, and this is the big one, which sort of is what we were just talking about. You're asking for 50% total site development shall be residential. Well, given the discussion about traffic problems and also Mr. Holden's comments about perhaps the connectivity of paths and whatnot, would you consider, instead of 50% of total site development shall be residential, that something more along the lines of 35% be developed, with the rest be allocated towards open space, pocket parks, fingerling paths, that kind of thing?
So right now, the parcel is 100% available to be developed for industrial. And so we're actually looking to reduce the uses and convert 50% of the industrial to residential. And so we view that as a win-win, if you will. Further reducing or creating additional set aside, we don't feel that it makes sense from what the existing entitlement is or what the development should be going forward.
But don't you think it might solve some of our concerns by reducing the percentage of development of residential?
I think it could, but it creates other issues for, even if we don't have a certain level of density, What wasn't pointed out here is currently is not sewer serving the property. We have to bring sewer from 3.5 miles from the north in order to serve this. And so there has to be a certain level in order to justify the development there. And so, yeah, for us, I think how it will end up being the riparian, I know you didn't like the word riparian, but there will the riparian is going to remain open for that. So all there will be open space on the property in those riparian areas. And we've actually situated some of the residential to buffer that. So they'll be adjacent to the open space riparian area. And then also, may I call out, there's another, it's called a BOZO, biological overlay zone,
overlays,
where there's already a requirement of a 30% set aside within that area. And so that's part of the existing code. So we're already setting aside quite a bit of land between the riparian and the overlay. So it won't be full development across the entire site.
Right. I understand that, and thank you. I'm just worried about the feeling and the crowdedness, if you will, of your proposed residential density. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Clement. JJ, you went before. Your hand's up again, so please reserve for one succinct question of the applicant, because we need to get rolling here.
Okay. So I just wanted to quickly say that this particular area, in thinking about building a sense of place and belonging, is an area that the Butterfield Trail went through, the Mormon Battalion went through.
Oh.
So thinking about public art, murals, interpretation, things like that. The Butterfield was just designated a national trail last year by President Biden. And so I'll just say there's some great opportunities there I wanted to point out.
Thank you.
Good recommendation.
Excellent. We've now had an opportunity for the staff to present, Q&A with the staff, the applicant presented, Q&A with the applicant. The next phase of this hearing will be the public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone on the call of the public wish to speak to the DRC regarding the request? Hearing none. At this point, we're going to close the public hearing, and it's time, I think, for the DRC to discuss. I want to capture some, I took some notes listening to my other DRC members. I think there was a lot of potential value could be added based on a lot of your concerns. And I think a lot of these can be added through conditions associated with a potential approval. And I want to try to capture them. So I'm going to just put these out here to kind of see if we could get things going. Starting with a requirement that 30 days after approval, that if approved, that the applicant consult with all adjacent neighbors, I would say within 300 feet of the project, to let them know what's coming. We are in no way delegating authority to those neighbors, but I think Paul was spot on that the sooner they know, the better. And there could be an opportunity for them, the neighbors, may have some good ideas that could influence a better outcome. So notice to neighbors, I think, is a valued idea that could help. I think I heard from, I think it was Ms. Lamb, making a good point that most of the pedestrian paths, we do not want purely internal. There should be connections to the outside of the site. It could even be a dead end to the property line to accommodate a future potential connection. We already have some concepts like that in our zoning code. Whenever a developer is putting in a new school, excuse me, a new development by a school, they are to try to integrate the same type of a thing where we want the ability for pedestrians to flow into and out of that development into their surrounding community. So I think that's worth noting. Specifically to page 52, Ms. Clement pointed out that we should consider a condition that requires that the elevation showing the street cross section, that the sidewalk element is meandered and not just always 3 feet off the road like it's displayed. There was on page 60 a reference to the amount of turf. I think the DRC could institute another number. I think it's proposed at 25%. It might be easier just to pick a lower number if that's the intent of the DRC, but still allow some turf. I do think there's a value to it. If you have a little pooch, you want the dog out at night to go to the bathroom. Sometimes the artificial turf is not the solution, and nor, having to take your dog to a common area across the street isn't very viable either with coyotes and such. But maybe a cap on turf, or maybe we leave it alone. And then JJ, you indirectly brought something up that I think is valuable, and that is that if approved, the applicant shall consult with and correct me, JJ, with the right terminology of the organization, the Vail Historic Commission, regarding any public art.
Oh, Vail Preservation Society.
Vail Preservation Society. How could I forget? Okay. And that's a consultation. Again, we're not delegating authority, but I think it is invaluable for the developer to hear some of the ideas early, before decisions are made, before things are purchased, where then maybe these consultations with neighbors and the Vail Preservation Society could lead to a meaningful outcome. So engaging them, the sooner the better. And those were my notes of some concerns I heard. I know Evan had larger concerns about the appropriateness maybe of the non-residential component. But it's a good point. I think we're dealing with sort of maybe planning from 5-6 decades ago that just isn't right, but we got what we got. And that's it. So at this point, I want to turn it over to the rest of the DRC for discussion. And Lexi, once we get through some more, I see your hands up, we will engage you to hear some of your thoughts. I think, Bill, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd just like to say a couple things. In the past, everybody thought that industrial property should always go alongside the railroad tracks. That, people wanted industrial there because they didn't want a railroad in their backyard or whatever. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is access to the railroad tracks is not a given. There's very few areas where you can access the railroad track. There's siding, and most of the railroad tracks, there's no access, but they still had zoned everything industrial. Nowadays, like if you go just west of this property on the other side of Colossal Cave Road, I think it was D.R. Horton and a couple other builders built right up to the railroad tracks. And one day I was in one of the model homes looking at it when a train came by, and only because I saw the train did I notice that it went by. You couldn't hear it because they have extra dual pane windows and extra insulation. They soundproof them a lot better. So it used to be a negative to live near the railroad tracks, and it's not that same way anymore because inside you don't hear the train. And I think, to have them have residential there, they were talking, some people mentioned density. Density equals affordability. The denser you make a project, the more affordable it is, the lower the cost per unit. And, if we're looking for affordable housing, to tell them, you know, that we don't want it this dense or whatever, fewer homes, you're going to raise the price of those houses. The other thing also was, you know, Savano is a great area and it's a great neighborhood, but that concept is not for everybody. People are different, and some people don't like, you know, to meet their neighbors, and they go to places purposely where they can't see their neighbors or whatever. So, you know, to have them all properties, all neighborhoods done like Savano would be great for some people, but other people wouldn't enjoy being there.
Good points. Thank you very much, Bill. And that's the perspective of a real estate broker, so we appreciate that. Any other members of the DRC want to speak to the overall request?
Mr. Chairman,
Mark Holden.
I just remember that I think it was Mr. Wheeler was talking about possibly screening air conditioning units, or
Oh, yes.
do you still, Mr. Wheeler, do you still want a condition like that put in place?
Thank you very much, Mr. Holden. Yes, I do. That was one of the, I have 5 possible conditions, and with the exception of that one, excuse me, I think Mr. Chair covered the other 4. So yes, thank you.
Very good. Okay, so we've batted around some concepts of some potential conditions. JJ, I see your hand. One sec. So I think we're probably better off discussing the overall ask, and I'm going to go first. And I think we're faced with a situation where it is zone CI1 and it is not in an ideal location. It's probably in a poor location, but there are rights and entitlements to CI1. And I think this proposal, with a mixture of uses and the staff's recommended conditions and some of the other conditions the DRC is thinking about, could be a very good outcome for that area. So I don't love this project based on its constraints of its location, but I think there are a lot of good things baked into it that were touched upon and could be further enhanced with our conditions. So I am inclined right now to recommend approval. I am now going to let JJ speak. So JJ, you are currently in the muted status. If you could unmute.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm unmuted. Good. I'm just thinking about drainage. So I would just ask that, you know, as planning moves forward, that we really consider that, you know, drainage drains to the west, and there's several adobe buildings that are the last reminders of Vail's founding, and you know, so really considering thoughtfully the drainage as building is done, to really try not to direct. Yeah, it's going to go west, the drainage is, but I'll just say that when Colossal Cave Road was built, instead of the drainage going directly west, it goes southwest. And so we've had to do some mitigation ourselves for the old post office, because the drainage would hit the building directly in the center of the east end. And so, you know, I would just say, please think about the drainage and capturing maybe that drainage in retention basins and things. That's all.
Thank you. Any other points of discussion from the DRC regarding the overall request?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Holden.
I'm a bit on the horns of a dilemma with this project, same as you. I think even the submittal pointed out that this area was rezoned back in 1960 for theoretically for a huge shopping mall, I think. That said, yeah, I have to agree. I think that putting residential, 50% on this site is probably going to be better than making it all, 100% industrial, light industrial. We do know that Tucson needs housing. I would also point out just some of the work that we've done with the comprehensive plan. The Vail census designated place is one of the areas that we're probably looking at some of the higher population growth in unincorporated Pima County over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need that, we need the housing. It's not a great site, but it's maybe a good compromise for the use in the site, and I'd be voting in approval.
Thank you. Any other
Oh.
comments of the DRC? Carol Clement, your hand is up.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm confused. What else is new? About where we're at with the transportation report, the traffic loading report. Might that shed some more light on this project? Where is that at? Sorry.
So Ms. Clement, with the original application, we, planning staff, Spencer specifically, shared this project with the Department of Transportation. They took a preliminary look at it. I believe there's a condition requiring a traffic impact study. That will not occur until time of plat, which is normal. That's the normal cycle. Then at time of plat, the traffic impact study may, and it's not perfectly black and white. These studies are sometimes iterative between
Yes.
the applicant's engineer and DOT's engineer. They're not perfect. There's some art to them, which then they could lead to outcomes like changing the interface of success, adding turn lanes. Some occasions, I'm not going to commit to it. I'm not sure this one would be big enough, but in some occasions, these could even generate the requirement for a developer to put in a nearby traffic signal. So these are sort of the unknown outcomes, but I think DOT, Department of Transportation, has looked at it enough to know there aren't any giant red flags that can't be overcome with the conditions they're proposed. And I think DOT as well, they went into it understanding it is already zone CI1, and whether we like it or not, there's a bundle of rights and other uses that could be in here instead. So that's considered as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone other than JJ, we're going to get to you, but I want to make sure everybody else has an opportunity. Okay, JJ, go ahead.
Quick question. When that traffic study, impact study is done, how will we know where to find it to review it?
It's not, it could be shared. It's not going to be sort of a public process. Again, it's a negotiation almost between the developer and DOT. So when it's completed, you could see the outcome in the actual subdivision plats that will come out of the project. And stay in touch with us. We could share with you as we go, but I don't want to let you think it's some type of participatory review.
No, I don't think it's participatory, but I would like, to see it.
We could definitely give you access to it when it's completed. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could clarify, who pays for any traffic amenities that need to be installed? Developer or
developer?
Tax
developer.
People?
No,
Okay,
developer.
thank you.
There are times when maybe a capital improvement project is underway, and then the developer simply kind of, contributing to a larger project, but the developer bears the cost of the development they are doing. In addition to that, they're also going to be paying, with each home, there'll be an impact fee associated, a pretty significant impact fee. I think they're ranging about $8,000 now, where then all that money goes into a regional pool for regional projects. So the developer is
Right.
paying both specifically for their TIS and arguably per each lot as well.
Right. Savano had an impact fee too.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions from the DRC or conversation points? If not, I would love to hear someone try to make a motion.
I'll,
Miss,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I-
Lexi. I did say I'd get back to Lexi. So Lexi, we're going to give you an opportunity to go back to you before we craft a motion. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, Mr. Poirier, just one item on the first condition. Would it be all right if we extend the time period from 30 to 90 days? That would be consistent with the southern parcel. It just took a while to get the addresses and the notice.
Absolutely, yes.
Cool.
Well, we just want to make sure, before you're
Yeah.
breaking ground and decisions are made,
Absolutely.
there's an opportunity for you to interface. That's great. 90 is fine.
Yeah, otherwise, we're comfortable with what you've discussed there, Mr. Poirier.
Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, Mr. Wheeler, back to you.
Well, I'll give a shot at trying to make a motion.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. I move that, I'm not sure how to say this, P23VA00034, VP Vail Partners LLC, East Success Drive, be approved with the following conditions. One, first condition, within 90 days of approval, the partnership will send notification of a date and location for a meeting with those homeowners within 300 feet surrounding this property. Number two, language will be established specifying that screening of all residential utilities and equipment will occur. Number three, wall openings to allow future path connectivity for pedestrians and bicycles will be required or established. Number four, this will be a tough one, 25% of the remaining non-developed and non-turf related landscape may be turf.
No.
Number five, the Vail Preservation Society will be consulted regarding any public art to be created. And the last that I have is number six, drainage of water to the west of the property shall be mitigated to avoid potential water damage to historic sites.
Thank you for that, Mr. Wheeler. I just want to ask if just to clarify, these are additional conditions above and beyond what staff has proposed, correct?
That is correct.
Very
That
good.
is
So we have
correct.
additional conditions.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Holden.
we probably also want to add the supplemental conditions that were added by the Regional Flood Control District.
I believe those are already baked into the
Okay,
staff recommended.
good.
The only concern I have is the nature of the last condition, because I don't know enough about the drainage way. I would be comfortable supporting this motion if that is a consultation condition. Oh, Patricia Gilbert, thank you, just in time. Can you please speak to what you heard?
So in general, with any development, the developer is required to mimic existing conditions with their proposed conditions. So I don't know particularly if there is an issue with drainage coming onto this historical property. But if they're, they can't increase any drainage into that area. Additionally, we have a second condition, our second condition, we actually sort of, and we don't normally do this, we don't normally create a condition that actually mimics the ordinance, but this was sort of a special development, and we wanted to be sure that certain requirements adhere to the permitting. And that condition is drainage design shall not increase existing condition water surface elevations and flow velocities at all property boundaries. So that's very restrictive.
That's,
Yes.
mhm.
I can certainly live with that and withdraw my 0.6 if Ms. Lamb can go along with that too, since you've already established that condition.
That sounds like a good condition, and thank you for doing it.
Very good.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, other development has actually increased, and redirected, which has caused problems that, we've had to financially take on mitigation of. So thank you. I did have one other thing that I think maybe needed to be added in there, was the openings in the in walls for even future connectivity and trails and walkways.
Yes, that was
And
number
this-
3. That was my
Was
third
that number
condition.
three? Oh, I totally spaced that then when you read it.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Well, then I will amend my
Almost
conditions and remove 0.6 relative to the drainage issue.
Great, thank you. There was a friendly amendment accepted by the maker of the motion. Before we go much further, I think Carol, your hand is raised. Carol
Yes,
Clement.
Mr. Wheeler, could you read your turf condition again? I didn't quite catch it, I don't think.
All right. 25% of the remaining non-developed and non-turf related landscape may be turf. Does that work for you?
Of the remaining non-development per lot,
Yes.
right? Per lot.
Yes, 25% of each lot.
No. 25% of the remaining open space per lot. Non-developed.
Well, your
Undeveloped
issue-
area.
undeveloped area.
Okay.
I have an alternative proposal because I think
Thank
if
you,
I heard it
Chris.
right from the applicant, they're talking, these are 4,000 square foot lots, maybe 2,000 square foot homes. So if you do the math, the current proposal gets them 1,000 feet of turf. Maybe we just cut that in half and say no lot can have more than 500 square feet of turf. Square feet of turf. I
Oh,
think
that's-
that gets us pretty close to where we're trying to go without coming up with a condition too difficult to consider.
Maybe no greater than 500 square feet.
500 per lot, correct.
I would agree with that.
Very good.
I would agree with that.
So Mr. Wheeler has accepted that other friendly amendment. Bill Yarnell.
Well, I was gonna say about the turf. If you take a 2,000 square foot house, you have the driveway, which is probably 20 feet wide and 30 feet long, or 20 feet, 25 feet long. That's another 400, 500, 600 square feet that's developed. Then you take the garage, which is another 400. You take, maybe a 50-foot front porch and a 100-foot back porch. You start whittling it down, that would leave you with about 250 square feet of grass, which is like 12 by 12, which, is pretty small. But, to change it to no more than 500, I'd be fine with that.
Very good. Good points. Thank you.
So then we would modify condition number 4 to state turf of any type may not be greater than 500 square feet per lot.
Now, Lexi, your hand is raised. We are going to
Well-
let you speak to this before we get too much further. Applicant.
It just, think this could be a challenge for some of the home builders and their typical offering and what they want to offer to the families. And so again, given the limitation or the small size of the lots, we would ask if it can be as it's currently drafted on 25%. Again, to allow the opportunity of the families to come in and put in the turf if they so decide, and if they want to go smaller, then they certainly can. But again, since we are talking about acre-sized lots, it's not going to be significant amount of turf that we're talking about.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Mr. Drozgowski.
I guess, I think the DRC is, crafted some good conditions. I'm not sure I'm understanding the purpose of this one. Are we talking about growing grass, or are we talking about including artificial grass?
Mr. Drozgowski, we're talking about natural grass. The applicant in their
Right.
materials presented to the DRC a level of control.
Okay,
The DRC is looking to refine it.
so if the home builders want to put fake grass, they can put it throughout their entire yard and there is no issue.
They could do 2 layers of it at 200%.
I just wanted to make sure we were
Correct.
talking about grass that grows and needs to be mowed and not the
And
fake
watered.
kind. And watered,
And
okay,
watered.
I understand, thank you.
Okay. Should we take another shot at condition 4?
Yes.
How
Well-
about this? To try to comply with everyone, not just the DRC, but the developer as well. Condition 4, grass turf may not exceed 25% of the remaining non-developed lot.
Yeah, and I would love to hear that the applicant could give us a big thumbs up, but there's a point where it's not just a pure negotiation. The DRC does have some authority. I see a thumbs up. Great, I could stop. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
That was a very cool thumbs up. I didn't know we could do that. Kind of ghostly, but it worked. Thank you. All right. So, Spencer, I hope you're following. Mr.
I'm trying my
Wheeler
best, yeah.
is put out a motion with conditions. Are you in a position to read them back? Are we going to rely on the recording? Where are we?
I think I've gotten them mostly written down, so I don't
Okay,
have them
Good.
in order,
So-
and we
so
also
you're-
have the recordings. So.
that's fine. So you're ready, but so at this point, we have a motion with some conditions. Spencer's aware of them. So now I'm going to ask if anyone would second the motion. It was approval with those 5 conditions. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Holden?
I'll second.
A second, thank you. So we now have a motion and a second to approve with those 5 conditions. Spencer, can you touch on the conditions before we go to a roll call vote?
Thank you.
If you're going to make me, yes, I can. All right, so we have 90 days after approval, the applicant shall meet with neighbors within 300 feet to discuss the project. We have pedestrian paths have potential access points to the site exterior for future connectivity, pedestrian or bike or trail. So the sidewalk cross section on page 59 shall be changed to show a meandering path rather than just straight paths. So I'm not sure about the last condition with the turf. I don't know if somebody wants to read that back.
Referencing page 60, the limit will be
Yeah.
25% of the lot, undeveloped land of the lot. So you take out the
Gotcha.
house and the drive, and that's what you got.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we have screening for air conditioning units within, or air conditioning units and mechanical equipment of residential, the residential spaces.
And I would like to point out to that point, thank you, that there are some public utilities, the transformer, the green boxes we see along the street. I don't think the intent here is to screen that. We're talking about the AC units primarily and other ancillary equipment associated with a home. If it's a public utility, we can't require screening of that.
Gotcha.
Great.
And then
Particularly
the last
rooftop
one
equipment.
was applicant shall consult with the Vail Preservation Society in regards to installation of public art.
Excellent.
And then we have all the other conditions that were in the staff report and supplemental.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have go ahead. I heard a question.
I'm sorry, I wanted to clarify. For the first condition, not only is it to notify the neighbors, but it's to establish a date and a location for a meeting. Notification is fine, but I want to make sure that there is an actual date and time and location for a meeting.
Excellent.
Please.
Thank you. It was your motion, you would know. JJ Lamb,
Okay.
hand is up.
Okay, I hate to bring this up now, but I'm thinking about that area, 300 feet. How many people are gonna get notified?
That would be everyone, certainly
Yeah.
adjacent.
There's not very many people out there. And
Well,
the houses are on large lots.
But I think that's the intent. Is a lot of what we heard today was the interface of this project with the existing homes. We're
Okay.
getting that and then some, and it wouldn't preclude them from bringing other people. They could bring a friend.
So I'm just, just thinking, 300 feet, maybe there might be 10 houses or something, but yeah, they'll probably tell their neighbors. Okay. I'm just thinking about that neighborhood.
Question of Ms. Lamb. Do any of the 3 neighborhoods that are addressed in this proposal have homeowners associations?
Probably not.
Well, one thing that will happen, Mr. Wheeler, is if they do a 300-foot notice, if there's any common area within 300 feet, they're gonna be noticed.
Okay, all right.
You know what? I'm not positive, but I don't think they. Yeah, there might be a more informal one run by the neighbors themselves.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're a spokesman for that area. You might want to help that out.
Well, if I know when the meeting is, I will help it out.
There you go. Okay.
All right. Motion, second, clarification. Everything's clear, right? Let's hear a roll call vote. Spencer, if you could. You're muted.
Thank you very much. All right, let's start with Chair Poirier.
I vote yes.
Mr. Holden.
Aye.
I think we lost Mr. Crow. I'm not mistaken. I think he had to jump off, but we'll go to Mr. Yarnell.
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler.
Yes.
Mr. Eglin.
Yes.
Ms. Clement.
Yes.
And Ms. Lamb.
Yes.
Right. That's yeses from everybody.
Thank you.
Wow.
Unanimous approval. Very good. And I want to thank all members of the DRC. This was not easy. And I think there was a lot of participation, and the outcome, I think, represented a lot of interest here for the better. So the applicant gave us a big yellow thumbs up earlier. I think that bodes well. So well done, DRC, and applicant approved.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So looking at the agenda, next item is adjournment. I'm going to motion for adjournment. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Second. Well, that's it. Any objecting to the adjournment? Hearing none. Thank you all. Really good job. We came up with a lot of good conditions that should make it a better project. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.